Assalamu alaikum. This is the fourth lecture and second part, and the topic is Russia's geostrategic challenges. In the previous lecture, we have concluded on a point that Russia doesn't have an access to the warm water. It's not like that. Russia doesn't have an access to the warm water, but they have. But for few months of the year, like 3 to 4 months of the year, like for example, the first one port I would discuss over here is like the port of Novorossiysk is of limited use for the whole year. Almost 8 to 9 months of the year it is freezed, so it is of limited use, and it's not as deep as Gwadar is. It's otherwise it would have been of great use. There is another port, Petersburg port. It also freezes for almost 8 to 9 months of the year, and it is also of limited use. And the third port is Vladivostok, and it also freezes for maximum month of the year. So, and again I would say that it's not only the freezing temperature over there are other problems that are being faced by Russians, which are like, for example, if you want to use Novorossiysk port, you have to pass through Bosphorus Strait that is controlled by the Turkey, and Turkey is a part of NATO. Like, for example, if you want to use Petersburg's port, you have to pass through Danish Strait, and Danish Strait is being controlled by Denmark, and Denmark is a part of NATO. And the third one is Vladivostok, and if you want to use this port, you have to pass through the Sea of Japan and many other points in the Asian Pacific. So Japan is an ally of USA, and all these points are being controlled by the NATO countries, and there are treaties among the NATO countries that if any of the parties being attacked, it means that that attack would be considered of whole of the NATO countries. So a war with one country would mean like that all the NATO country would come to the defense of that very country. And in case if a war is ignited in between NATO and Russia's all these states would be blocked for Russia. It would be hard for it to travel and to use its trade routes, and its economy would collapse. If we look at the border of Russia, it is being safeguarded by natural barriers like huge mountains, thick forests, freezing temperature, ocean at its north, but there is one side of its border that is at its west with the European countries, which is quite vulnerable for Russia. This is why in the history Russia has always tried to expand toward west, and this is why whenever Russia is being attacked was from this very border. So this border is quite vulnerable. In order to maintain its regional hegemony, what Russia actually did, right after its disintegration, almost 15 countries has emerged, and out of those 15, 12 are still aligned with Russia, whereas 3 like Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia has sided with NATO, or they have become a NATO NATO part. So if we see politically, Russia still maintain its influence in the region. And there is another port with the name of Sevastopol that is being owned by the Crimean government. So Russia has tried to influence Crimean government to have this port, but Ukraine didn't sign anything with the Russians because Ukraine had an influence of its Western countries like European countries, USA, and the NATO countries. This is why Crimean Peninsula was being occupied and by the Russians. Occupying Crimean Peninsula has strengthened naval capability of Russia in the Black Sea. And again, I would say that Russia's annexation of Crimean Peninsula is for more warm water, and it is a port from where Russia can have the warm water for almost all the year. And if we come to the resources, Russia have huge resources of oil and natural gas, and the reserves are huge in size. Like Russia supplies 40% of the European gas through its own reserves, and even there are almost 6 to 7 of the European countries that are totally dependent on the Russian natural gas. Otherwise they don't have any local resources. This is why whenever there is a situation at the international level, Germany has not opposed Russia. Why? Because Germany is dependent on Russia's oil and gas, and Britain have almost and always opposed Russia's move. Why? Because Britain is not dependent on Russia's resources. On the other hand, if US want to get this European countries dependent of Russian resources, it would be very costly for it. Like for example, liquefied natural gas. If US want to export this liquefied natural gas to the European countries, it will be very costly for them, and even the European countries would not prefer to buy that gas, because the gas and the resources being provided by the Russia are quite cheap through the pipelines. In short, we will say that geography matters a lot, geographical location matters a lot, and it decides your fate. Like for example, in Afghanistan, in Vietnam, when USA has invaded, hundreds of thousands of US troops were killed. Why? Because of the terrain, because of the geography of that country, and because of thick forests and mountainous and rough terrain. In the same way, if we talk about Afghanistan, the geography of Afghanistan matters a lot. Britain has hesitated to go into Afghanistan. The Soviets, when invaded in Afghanistan, they were devastated, and even the USA has withdrawn their forces from Afghanistan. Why? Because of the geography of Afghanistan and because of its terrain. So in the same way, Russia has a secured borders due to its geographical location. Though it's secure, but at the same time it has this problem of having an access to the warm water. So this was all about Russia. I hope आपको समझ आ गई होगी, and if you have any queries you can ask me. Allah Hafiz.